All right, we are on the air. Hey, everybody, it's the Fran Harris Show. You know, I broadcast live on Mondays, bringing you some of the most dynamic, badass people on the planet, and today is no exception. I've got Noah St. John on the show today, and he's going to talk to you about his new book, the Book of Affirmations, Discovering the Missing Piece to an Abundant Life, Abundant Health, Wealth, Love, and Happiness. And the cool thing is that Noah says that you can do this with just 5 minutes per day. Noah, welcome to the show. How are you?
Fantastic, Fran. Great to be here with you.
You know, one of the things that when I read titles and subtitles and they say, oh, we can do this and we can do this in 21 days or we can do this in 5 minutes a day, I always go, I'm always curious about the journey of how people got to where they are. So for you, you're at this station now in your life, but you didn't just hop off the train and get to where you are today. What was your journey and how'd you get there?
Well, it really started when I was a kid, and I grew up poor in a wealthy neighborhood. And I know that sounds weird, but I grew up in this little town called Kennebunkport, Maine, which happens to be one of the wealthiest communities in New England, but my family was dirt poor. And I mean that literally because we lived at the bottom of this dirt road in a drafty, unfinished house. And I remember my parents worked really, really hard, but they just were always fighting about money. And, you know, from the time that I was really little, I made a decision that I wanted to make something of my life. And so, have you ever heard of that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Of course.
Yeah. It's about a guy who had a rich dad and a poor dad. Well, I only had a poor dad. Even though he worked really hard all his life, he just never made any money. So all I had was the library. So I started, from the time I was a little kid, just started reading all these self-help books, all the classics, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, Stephen Covey, and I started trying to apply them. Well, fast forward about 20 years, it was April 1997, and I was a 30-year-old religious studies major in college. Now, I lived in this little teeny dorm room that was so big, if you stood in the middle of the room and put your arms out to either side, you could touch the walls on both sides. That's how big the room was. And everything I owned, all my worldly possessions were in this tiny little room. So one night in 1997, I was just thinking about, I was depressed, I was lonely, I probably had less than $800 to my name, I was broke. And I was thinking about, I was like, how come I've been reading all these books for so many years, doing everything they told me to do, working really, really hard, and I'm still really frustrated. I felt like a total failure.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was, that particular night, I looked around my little room, and I saw there were all these little pieces of paper on which I'd written these positive statements. I am happy, I am rich, I am wealthy. And why had I done that? Because every book told me to do it. But yet, it wasn't true. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe any of these things, and they certainly weren't manifest. They weren't true in my life. So I was very frustrated. I went to bed. I was depressed and angry and frustrated. And so I got up the next morning, got in the shower just like any other morning. Now, did you ever have those ideas in the shower, those aha moments?
Always.
Right, all the time. It's like those those epiphanies, right? Well, on this particular morning, it's April 24th, 1997, I was thinking about everything that I just shared with you, and all these questions were rattling around in my brain. Like, how come I've been doing everything they told me to do, saying these positive statements over and over and over for so many years, but I still don't believe them? I don't believe in myself, and there's certainly nothing that's happened here. I don't see any results. What's missing?
Yeah. And
so I said to myself, well, what are we really talking about here? We're talking about beliefs. Because when you're trying to change your life, we have to start with your beliefs. And I said, okay, but what is a belief? Well, a belief is a thought. Well, what is a thought? And I said, well, what is human thought? And when I asked that question, I said, well, when you think about it, human thought is the process of asking and searching for answers to questions. Not statements, but questions. For example, if I were to ask you, why is the sky blue? Why is the sky blue? Do you know what just happened in your brain?
I went because it is.
Right. Your brain actually started to search for the answer. In that little second, your brain, just like a Google search or a computer searching its files, started going through its files in your brain, right? The sky's blue because, I don't know. But it's searching, right? It automatically did it. So I said, wait a second. If the human brain is automatically searching for answers to questions, why are we going around making statements we don't believe? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? And I said, well, what would that look like? Well, let's see. You've got the statement or affirmation, the traditional one we're all used to. For example, a classic affirmation is, I am rich, right? Because that's what, you know, we all want. We all want to be rich and happy, successful, whatever. So you say, I am rich. You say, I am rich, and your brain says, yeah, right. Right? I mean, look, we say these positive statements. and we want to believe them, but the sad truth is for most people, we just don't believe them.
Yeah.
So now the traditional teacher said, well, listen, just repeat your statements 1,000 million billion kajillion times, and then you'll believe it someday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So,
right.
And look, sometimes that works, and affirmations have worked for millions of people out there. However, there's also millions of people that are very frustrated and had a similar situation to what I had, meaning they've been doing what we were told and it didn't work. We didn't see the results that we wanted. So I said, well, wait a second. If the statement is, I am rich, and your brain says, yeah, right, what would the question be? Why am I so rich? Now, when you ask that question, what happens in your brain? Your brain has to search for the answer.
Right.
Now, we all know about the law of sowing and reaping, right? As you sow, so shall you reap. It's been taught for centuries. But what are we sowing? We're sowing seeds of thought. But what are most people doing? Sowing lousy thought seeds.
Right.
Why am I so broke? Why am I so fat? Why can't I ever make more money? Why can't I find a date on Friday night? Why is there more months left at the end of the money? You ask lousy questions, what do you get?
Yeah, terrible answers.
Lousy answers, right.
Yeah.
And that creates a lousy life. So I said, wait a second, what if instead of asking lousy questions that lead to lousy answers and forms a lousy life, what if we start at asking empowering questions that lead to phenomenal answers and form a wonderful life? So as I was standing there in the shower, it was April 24th, 1997, I said, holy cow, I think I just invented something. And so I had to give it a name, and the name that I gave it was, as you mentioned in my new book, Affirmations, not affirmations, but Affirmations. So Affirmations are really a new technology of the mind that allow you to directly change the subconscious thought patterns that you're holding, change the questions, and change your life.
And all this happened in the shower, Noah?
It was a very long shower. But what happened was I literally just jumped out of the shower. I had that aha moment. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the missing piece. And I had two thoughts. The first thought was, man, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And the second thought was, I can't believe no one's ever thought of that before. And so that's why I had to create this name. I literally jumped out of the shower, I ran to my computer, I typed everything that I was thinking, and so make sure that I got it down, in that moment. That's a great lesson for everybody. When you have those aha moments, make sure you write them down. Don't forget them, because they can be fleeting. I mean, I've written, 6 or whatever books on the subject ever since that shower moment. And so, because this is actually the 4th edition of this book of Affirmations. My point being is that the word affirmation, now one that we're all used to, the traditional method, comes from the Latin word firmare, which means to make firm. Now, the word affirmations that I invented that morning in the shower, and by the way, it's perfectly legitimate to invent a new word. When you have a new way of looking at the universe or a new technology, right? We often need a new word, like Google. I mean, here we are. We're on a Google Hangout, right? Google, computer, software, internet. These are all actually very new words in terms of human history. They've only been around a very short time, but of course we use them now every day. Well, it's a new technology, a new word. Well, this, what I'm teaching you now, what I'm sharing with you, is a new technology of the mind. Affirmations, which comes from the Latin word formare, F-O-R-M-A-R-E, which means to form or give shape to. So the question that I often ask my audiences, my coaching clients, my mastermind students is, what if you're making something firm, but it's in the wrong form?
Yes.
Forming a life you didn't want.
Yeah. And you know what, Noah?
We're doing that unknowingly and unconsciously. So that's why using affirmations to take conscious control of the questions you're asking, change the questions, and change your life.
So when people say, okay, change the quality of your questions, you get a better quality of answers, right? You've heard that. You've heard people say that. Why are we such in the habit of asking such terrible questions?
The main reason is because no one ever taught us a different way. Like I was just sharing with you, but those two thoughts I had, oh my gosh, that's so cool, and I can't believe no one's ever said this before.
Yeah.
I was frankly shocked that I happen to be the person who discovered affirmations, because affirmations are a specific form of question. Of course, there's an infinite number of questions you could ask. The problem is most people are unknowingly, unwittingly, and unconsciously asking very disempowering, lousy questions. I'll give you a great example. One of our clients named Sheila from California came to us, and she was making about $5,000 a month in sales. She's in network marketing, a business owner, entrepreneur, making about $5,000 a month in sales. And that's pretty good. She was doing well, but she knew she could do a lot more. And she'd spent like $40,000 on every self-help, money-making program out there, and still felt very stuck, very, frankly, overwhelmed and frustrated. So she came to us. A friend actually told her about us, and she got the program. She started using Affirmations. Long story short, in less than 6 months, she went from $5,000 a month in sales to over $75,000 a month in sales.
Wow.
Less than 6 months. And the cool thing was, not only did she increase her income by 15 times, but she actually was working less to make that much more money than she was at the 5,000 level. So one of the things she said to me was a big part of that was changing her questions from questions about being frustrated, why can't I grow my business, to empowering questions, using the Affirmations method.
It's funny you say that. I have a basketball history, and I trained some very elite girls and boys. And I was playing with one of my clients the other day, and I was shooting I don't know if you're familiar with basketball, just shooting tons of bricks, right? She's shooting really, really well. And when we were done, I said, what did you notice about me? She said, well, you just kept shooting. And I said, did you notice me saying anything to myself? She said, not really. I said, well, to myself, I was saying, I'm such a great shooter. Why am I such a great shooter? And she goes, I can't believe you were saying that to yourself when you were shooting the way you were shooting. I said, well, what happened? She said, you started to shoot better. I said, exactly. You were saying, I'm terrible. Why am I shooting so? I was saying, wow, I'm such a great shooter. So how do we get people to turn that? How do you teach people, Noah, to flip that switch?
Well, in the book of Affirmations, that's a great example, because I give you the 4 steps of the Affirmations method. And the first thing is you've got to understand what it is you want. You have to know what it is you're going for. Everything starts with desire, and many people are uncomfortable with that, saying, "Oh, well, you shouldn't want too much for yourself or whatever." Right. There's a lot of what I call head trash up there. A lot of head trash that says you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or it's too late, you made too many mistakes. Mm-hmm. So you got to understand, first of all, look at that head trash, and then understand where it is you want to go. Then you start using these empowering questions like I've been sharing with you, and then you've got to actually learn how to accept and give yourself to the question. We have many different ways of doing that. One of them is listening to what I call I-Affirm audios, and you actually listen to these affirmations over and over, set to inspiring music, and you can listen to them anytime, anywhere, and it actually reprograms your subconscious thought patterns while you're busy doing other things. Yeah. And then the 4th step is to take action. It's not enough just to sit there and think positive. There's a lot of teachers out there that say, oh, just think about money and it will fall in from the ceiling. I'm like, great, on what planet? Because, on planet Earth, last time I checked, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Gosh darn it, I've tried it a lot, and it keeps not happening. So you have to do that annoying thing called work to get that result that you wanted in the first place, whether it's to make more money, grow your business, lose 20 pounds, find the love of your life, quit smoking. We've had people do all of these things using Affirmations, and so much faster and easier than they ever thought possible. We've had people, win golf tournaments, for example, for the first time, just by changing the questions that they're asking from disempowering to empowering questions. So my point to everybody is, you have so much more talent, more ability, more strength, more capacity inside of you. But for most people, their head trash is absolutely stopping them from getting to that place inside of them where they can believe themselves and accomplish those great things.
Now, also in the book of Affirmations, Noah, you talk about the belief gap. For some people, that's a gulf. It's not even a gap. It's a gulf.
It's a canyon.
How do you address that in your book?
Absolutely. By the way, Fran, I do want to mention that we do have some free gifts for the folks listening. I just want to make sure and watching, when you go to affirmationsbook.com, we actually have $500 worth of training absolutely free. And I'll also, when you purchase the book, not only that, at affirmationsbook.com, I will give you the first chapter absolutely free, plus the foreword from John Assaraf, who many of you know from the movie The Secret. He's a dear friend of mine. He wrote the foreword for the book. So you'll get that at affirmationsbook.com. Again, I just want to make sure, to give that as gifts for your viewers here. My point is to go to your question about the belief gap. So go back to the thing that you want. Everything starts with desire. I want more money. I want to grow my business. I want to write a book. I want to be a best-selling author. I want to find the love of my life. Whatever. I want a ham sandwich for lunch. It can be from world peace to a ham sandwich. It doesn't matter. Everything starts with desire. So then the next thing that happens in us, in our lives, is this thing called belief, meaning your belief about your ability to be, do, or have that thing that you want. And remember, I'm not just talking about material things like cars, houses, and money, although those are fine and wonderful, nothing wrong with them. The point is it's also about non-material things, you know, the things that make life worth living, some would say. Love, happiness, joy, you know, contribution, significance, things you can't necessarily measure, but of course that's everything in life, I would say. Anyway, so you have your belief about your ability to have that thing. And so what most people say is, well, I can't, you know. So there are two basic beliefs that we have as human beings, which is I can and I can't. Meaning I can be, do, or have that thing, and I can't be, do, or have that thing. Now, Fran, you've worked with so many athletes and other, you know, professionals and things like that. You know, but when you look at the average human being, I'm talking about the average person, what do you think is the default human belief? I can or I can't?
Cannot. No way.
Exactly. Exactly. And so the irony is that I would say the number one thing, or certainly one of the most important things that separates the people who are average performers from high achievers, from highly successful people, is that belief, which is the average person will say, well, I can't, and that high achiever will say, well, of course I can. And so, but then the next thing that happens is action, okay? So that you take an action. Now, if you say to me, I want that thing, but I probably can't have it, what are your actions going to be? Not much, right? Because what are we going to do? We're going to prove ourselves right, right? We're going to say, well, I probably can't have it, so I guess I won't do much. Well, I want to lose 20 pounds, but I probably can't. You know what, let's just eat more. Or I want to make more money, but I probably can't do it. It's probably too late for me, so I guess I won't really work that hard, you know, or whatever it is. So my point being, you know, the actions is just not much, or not the right actions. Again, I'm not putting anyone down. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there working really, really hard. The problem is you're working hard on the wrong things. You're working too hard, actually. Just like that story I shared about Sheila, she going from $5,000 to $75,000 a month. She was working way less at $75,000 a month than $5,000. So again, it's not about, you know, you got to work harder. It is about working smarter and believing that you can actually get there. And then the final step that happens is a result. You know, and so you say, well, listen, if you believe in yourself and take action, you always get everything you want, right? No, gosh darn it. You know, that's what's so frustrating for so many people is they say, but no, I've done all the work. I've done this inner work, and I take action. I'm working hard. How come I'm not getting what I want? Okay, well, one of the things that I share is, you know, there's so many stories out there, and we've all heard these inspiring stories of people who tried for years and years and years and finally broke through. Right? So the fact of the matter is it's very rare that you get what you really want, that big dream, or that, you know, what Jim Collins would call the big, hairy, audacious goal on the first or second try.
Right.
You know, my friend Jack Canfield had this idea for the book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. Well, he went to the first publisher and they said, chicken soup for the what? That sounds stupid. Slam, you know, rejection, rejection, rejection. How many rejections do you think he got? 144 rejections in a row before he ever got one yes. So the point is, most people, of course, would have given up on the third, fourth, fifth. How about the 40th, 50th, 60th, 100th, right? So you see, that's why, you know, we talk about people like Jack Canfield being so successful because they had that belief.
I always talk to, whether it's my corporate clients or my CEOs, entrepreneurs, all the way down to athletes, we talk about the physical game of sports. And, of course, you'll know this from business and everything. It pales in comparison to the inner game, the mental game. And I'm so glad you talk about that in your book, because the inner game and the outer game, people think, oh, if I could just get my outer game right, then my inner game is going to be easy. But as you point out in your book, it's actually the opposite.
Well, they're both important, no question about it. And so I'll give you an example. So we hear, you know, if you hear about inner game, outer game, what does it really mean? Well, basically, it's very simple. The inner game is things that happen between your ears that you can't see, but you see the effects of them.
Right.
You can't see it directly. So it's your beliefs, your values, your decisions, your priorities. Okay, the thoughts, really, that you have in your brain. You can't see it directly, but of course you see the results. Then the outer game is the things that you do see directly, your behaviors, your lifestyle, your actions, your systems, strategies, you know, in your business and things like that. But there's, you know, whether you want to lose weight or find a happy relationship, you know, find your partner, the love of your life, or write a book, there's always system, strategies, outer game that has to happen too. So the point is success, and I mean long-term, really lasting, fulfilling success. That happens only when you align your inner and outer game. Let me give you an example. I was talking at a seminar in Los Angeles one time. I was, you know, giving a talk, and I was literally walking off the stage. This guy comes out and practically tackles me. He says, Noah, I want you to coach me. And I said, okay, what's going on? He says, Noah, I'm totally stuck. I'm only making $4 million a year. I said, Okay, that's funny. A lot of people like to be stuck at $4 million a year. He said, no, no, you don't understand. I own a software company, and we grew really fast. We got to 4 million in revenues, like really, really fast. But then we've just been stuck. We've been plateaued at 4 million in revenues for 4 years.
Wow.
And he says, I know it's me. You know, he's the owner. He said, I know I'm holding us back. I don't know what it is. He says, as soon as I heard you talk about everything you just said, head trash, inner game, outer game, affirmations, your belief gap, everything you just said, I knew you were the coach I've been looking for. Long story short, I did end up coaching him. And in that year, it was for less than a year actually, his company went, after being flatlined, 4 million for 4 years, went from 4 million in revenues to over 20 million in revenues in 1 year. And the irony of that story is that 90% of what we worked on, Fran, was inner game.
Yeah.
90% of our work was inner game. Very little about customer service, marketing, sales. Of course, you have to do all that stuff. You know, if you're in business, you have to have outer game stuff. Right. You can't just sit there and meditate all day, although that would be nice. But the point is he didn't know why he was holding himself back. We got rid of that head trash, and it increased by 6 times.
But I am amazed, Noah, and I know you've seen this in your practice as well. I am amazed at how much people minimize the importance of their inner game and how they think, you know, if I could just line up my widgets the right way or hire the right person, then everything will just magically fall into place. So how do you start to help put people on the path to having, becoming, being, doing more of what they really want?
Well, it is funny. You're exactly right, Fran. And in fact, the mistake I think that a lot of entrepreneurs make is that they actually focus too much on one or the other. Because I also see plenty of people who focus just only or primarily on their inner game, right? But yet they don't have the systems and strategies in their business. You know, just to give a classic example, sometimes people, I'll be working with them and I'll say, okay, let's take a look at your opt-in page. What's an opt-in page? Okay. Again, I'm not putting anyone down. I mean, look, we all have to learn these things. I didn't know what an opt-in page was a few years ago. So, but if you don't know what these things are in your outer game, then, clearly your income's going to be pretty much down from where it should be. So, the issue is really not should it be one or the other, but we have to have both together. So, one of the things but again, to your point, there are certainly another group of people, let's just say, that have only or almost all focused on outer game stuff, the sales, the marketing, all that stuff, the blocking and tackling that you have to do in business. I mean, you just have to do it every single day. But okay, where's the inner part? And some people refer to that as the culture of the organization. The inner stuff that isn't on your website necessarily, but it permeates everything throughout the organization. So again, going back to that client I was just talking about, that's really what we worked on. With him and his top people, was saying, okay, let's put the systems, those inner game systems, in place every single day. Just having the checks and balances, the fail safes, and saying, okay, first of all, am I using empowering language or disempowering language with myself? Secondly, am I using disempowering or empowering language with my employees, with my fellow team members, etc.? And then third, am I using empowering or disempowering language with my prospects and customers? You see, so a lot of, I'll give a classic example is airlines. All I have to say is that word, right? Does that make you feel good or lousy? For most people, airlines, that's all I have to say, right? Yeah. Does that really just feel excited to go on a plane flight? The only airline, and I only fly Southwest Airlines. I put my flag and I only fly Southwest. Why? Because their culture has been, and remember, that's from the top down. See, Herb Kelleher, and I'm sure most of you know the story of Southwest Airlines. If you don't, just look it up on Wikipedia. It's a fascinating story. And they come from love, service. In fact, Herb Kelleher has a great quote, which I say to my employees every day. We are a customer service organization that does personal growth. We are not a personal growth organization that has customer service. Yeah. And that, I know it sounds like, okay, yeah, that's a cliche. Well, yeah, it can be a cliche if you don't believe it, but if you live it, that's what we try to do every day. And we get just amazing kudos on social media, et cetera, for our world-class customer care because we've done that from the top down. Absolutely.
Let's talk to the master. I don't mind calling you master, Noah, at this. Let's talk to you about some of the inner and the outer game that you had to address to get to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, so I had tons of head trash. It was awful because all around me I saw things like cars and houses and food, and we just didn't have a lot of those things, and so it was very frustrating, and it was really hard, and a lot of people come to me, and this is so funny. They come to me with so much head trash about money,
Yeah.
and making money, even highly successful people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, well, I don't want to make more than my parents, or is that okay to, and again, it's from a good place, a heart-centered place. Well, why should I have more when so many people have less?
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful sentiment. The problem is it doesn't help you to have less. It doesn't give other people any more.
Yeah.
It's a false logic. And so, that's just a very simple example of showing people, well, wait a minute, you keeping yourself down isn't helping the world. In fact, it's harming people, because then you can't share your gift with all the people that you're here to touch. Yeah. So just that little bit of head trash can keep, I describe it as driving down the road of life with one foot on the brake. You really want that thing. You want to reach your destination, that desire that I keep talking about, because remember, we all have the same desires pretty much. We all want more money, security, freedom, happiness, love, connection, etc. Of course, everybody's individual in how that plays out. Some people want a private jet, some people want their own island in the Caribbean, whatever it means.
Right.
And so my point being is that, I had a minister friend say this to me a long time ago. He said, the best way to help the poor is not be one of them.
Exactly.
And I think just for that, I want people to realize that, allowing yourself to succeed, this is what I've been teaching people for 16 years, is that, literally giving yourself that permission to succeed so that you give others that same permission as well.
Absolutely. All right, so you had to overcome, if you will, or at least face head on some of the challenges of your upbringing and those kinds of things. What about your systems, your outer game? What parts were kind of missing for you that you go, okay, this piece is missing in my business, going to really help us get to the next level?
Well, and in the book of Affirmations, I talk about this. One of the things that I did as a profession, I was a professional ballet dancer for many years. Not belly dancer, ballet dancer. and of course now they have this show I saw, called Breaking Point on CW, and it's like now it's a cool thing, on a reality show. I'm like, wow, man, where were you guys when I was doing this? Because we sure didn't have any stuff like that. Yeah. But my point is, I was a ballet dancer. Then I had a career-ending injury. I had to retire at age 22 with no money, no connections, no business skills whatsoever. I had no idea. So I had to get all these really just survival jobs. Yeah. I mean, just to, pay the bills and eat. And, I really hated them. I mean, it was, just doing survival work, just like it sounds. And then, so when I had these epiphanies and I really realized I wanted to start my business, it was in 1997, which, is, ancient in terms of internet years. Google was only 1 month old at the time, literally. So, I mean, and I was a religious studies major in college. That was my second time in college. So if you look up in the dictionary, here's 2 ways how not to make money, that's what I was doing. So I had no clue what to do outer game-wise. I had absolutely no idea. I had no connections, no mentor, no coach. I mean, so I was but what I had was a dream. I had a mission. And I did have just that mustard seed of belief. I certainly wasn't sitting there going, oh, I know I can do this. No, I mean, every day I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. And it was scary. It was frightening. I didn't have anyone to talk to. It was lonely, and it was just a long, long time of building these systems. But, I found a mentor, and, he really helped me. And, I was really in dire straits, so I basically did whatever he told me to do. I said, okay, you told me to do this, I'll do it. Okay, what's the next thing? All right, do that. And I mean, I just kept doing it, and it was funny because, the very first teleseminar that I did, which was actually way back in 2007, I did this teleseminar series. I had a teeny list of about 900 people on my mailing list, and I made over $12,000 from just that tiny little list. I sent that to my mentor, the results, and he said, wow, Noah, that was awesome. You hit it out of the park. I said, well, I just did what you tell me to do. And he goes, yeah, but nobody does it.
Right, exactly.
And so I was like, no kidding, that's because of head trash. That's what I do. Anyway, but so that's really where I started to get it. So I mean, my gosh, my point of my story, I guess, is for everybody out there. I came from absolutely no knowledge, no skill, no education, and no connections. So look, people ask me all the time, how did you get endorsements from Jack Canfield, John Assaraf, Neil Donald Walsh, John Gray? Barbara DeAngelis, all of the biggest names in this industry. How did you do that? I said, I kept asking. That's how.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't have a silver spoon. I didn't have a spoon. So it was just kept one foot in front of the other, and just keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize.
You just keep it moving. Noah, do you find that a lot of people feel that it's just even the possibility of failure, whatever you may define that as, or rejection, or it's going to be difficult? Do you find that stumps a lot of people?
Oh, absolutely. It really goes back to that belief gap that I was talking about earlier. Those desires aren't going anywhere. I share this in great depth in the book. It's just those 4 steps: desire, belief, action, result. Those are never going away. They're never going to change. You're doing it right now anyway. Yeah. So the desire isn't going to move. You're always going to want that thing. And of course, don't get me wrong, our desires change and evolve over time. Right. I want to publish my first book, then I want to be a best-selling author, then I want to have a best-selling series. So of course it's evolving. But my point, I want to find the right girl, and then I want to get married, and then I want to have a family. So obviously that keeps evolving. My point is they're there, right? So the belief is really, that's where we can really focus, and you must focus, because absolutely right there is where most people fall down, as we discussed earlier. Most people are just saying, I probably can't do it. Yeah. And so, okay, then what's your action going to be? Not much. This goes back to one thing that I've been teaching for many years, which is that's why so many people have what I call shelf help. They have so much shelf help, and they've bought all these programs like, Sheila, my client who I talked about earlier. Yeah. She spent $40,000. And, again, these are highly motivated people. I know everyone watching this is motivated. You're talented. You're creative. You're hardworking. Again, you're working too hard. That's the sad irony. You're working too hard on not the right things. Right. So it's not about just doing things differently. It is about doing different things. Yes. And ironically, doing almost certainly, I would best bet for almost everybody watching, doing so much less than you're doing right now and getting so much more done and so much more profitably, actually, or, again, having those results that you're looking for.
We are such of the mindset that we of being busy rather than productive, right? You got to be working hard. Oh, we love to tell people we work 30 hours in this day, and and I know you can attest this for me and for Sheila, obviously. When I started focusing on the right things, working in the right way on the right things in the right proportions, I was spending more time twiddling my thumbs. Yeah. Wondering what's wrong, wondering, there must be something wrong. I'm not doing anything.
Right. And yet you're making more money.
Exactly. Right. So in your book,
it is. It all goes back to that movie, that Rodney Dangerfield movie, Back to School. Remember that movie?
Yeah, I do.
You're probably too young for this, but
I do remember that.
You do remember? Well, it's so. I love watching that movie. I recommend that to everybody. Back to School, because Rodney Dangerfield is a highly successful guy. He goes back to college, right? And his son is there, and his son's saying, of course you got to work hard. So Rodney Dangerfield, what does he do? He outsources everything. Okay, which of course is called cheating in college. And I'm not saying you should do this, but in life, it's like that's what I'm like. Why would you do your own work? Let's just outsource it. And I love watching that movie because Jason, the son's going, oh my God, how could you do that? And he's like, why wouldn't you? And so
that's the beginning of outsourcing.
We're pretty much taught everything wrong in this culture, which is to, again, we're taught from an ancient, frankly, just outdated paradigm, which is, you get good grades, go to a good school, get a good job, retire 40 years, and then you can have fun and do what you want. Yeah. Okay, and again, that is what our parents, grandparents, whatever, did, but my God, that is long gone, guys, if you haven't noticed. So, but things take time to change, in us humans and in culture. This is a societal seismic shift, which is not easy to say. So it's enormous, and people we haven't caught up yet, frankly, to just the reality that we have here on Earth right now.
All right, as we wind it down, Noah, let's talk about these 5 minutes a day that I can transform my life. So folks are watching, going, okay, this is cool, this is really fun, this is insightful, this is enlightening. But talk to me about those 5 minutes a day.
Absolutely. Well, listen, again, when you go to affirmationsbook.com and get the copy, or 2 copies of the book, actually, I'll give you $500 in bonus training, part of that bonus training is these affirmations audios that you just listen to. Now, the beautiful thing about how I've done these is you just have them in the background, and you don't even have to be paying attention, literally changing your subconscious thought patterns while you're not even paying attention. And it's reforming your brain patterns to saying from disempowering to empowering questions. So my point is, I'm just giving that away as a free gift, you know, when you buy the book. The point is, you can just start asking empowering questions. It doesn't take long. You're already using affirmations anyway. You just don't know it. You're using them against yourself. Most people are asking very disempowering questions like, why am I so broke? Why am I so fat? Why can't I lose weight? Why am I such a loser? Why does nothing ever work out for me? If you form questions like that, guess what you're doing? You're forming your life. So what I'm sharing with you now, this is a new technology of the mind. It is a new way to use, you know, the brain that God's already given you. We don't have to, you know, fix your brain. We just have to teach you how to use these questions. So it literally, that's all it takes. You're just learning how to change these questions. Ask empowering questions. I know you guys are busy. You know you've got 1,000 things to do every day, so it's not like you sit there for an hour and stare at your navel. I mean, you just go through it as you go throughout your day. You can write out your affirmations. You can listen to them using the affirmation audios that I give you in the bonus package. You know, I mean, I'm listening to affirmation audios anytime, anywhere. You can listen in the car, at home, in the office. Literally, while I'm watching television, you know, I'm still listening to these iForm audios just in the background. You don't have to. You know, you don't actually have to hear them consciously because they're penetrating the subconscious, and it's changing or empowering. By the way, we had a guy in Chicago named Robert, and he wrote me. He said, Noah, I got your book, and I've been using the iForm audios for the last 3 weeks, and I just closed my first $1 million client.
Nice.
3 weeks, and he just closed his first $1 million client. And I mean, he said it would not, in his email, he said it would not have been possible without learning how to change my mindset the way you taught me. So I mean, it's just amazing. We've had people who quit smoking after 20 years. You know, people who found the love of their lives after they've given up on relationships. We've had lots of marriages. You know, I actually had an email from a client named Michael in Germany. He said he and his wife, the divorce papers were on the table ready to be signed. They were literally ready to be signed. For some reason, and I don't know how this is possible, they started listening to my iForm audio. Either they were looking at their email or a friend told them about it or whatever. But anyway, he and his wife started listening to his iForm audios. Long story short, they never signed the papers. They're madly in love again, and they're like newlyweds. I mean, you can't get any closer than that. The divorce papers to be signed, and now they're madly in love again. I mean, it's just, it's incredible, the real life stories that we have. And, you know, hey, for everybody watching, I'd love to have your story be next.
I think your biggest problem, Noah, is that you've got to get more excited about your life right now.
I'm sorry. I mean, you know, try to calm down. I do. I love changing people's lives.
I know.
It's a great feeling, and I know you know this as a mentor, teacher, and a coach. You know, just to see people's lives change, it's the greatest feeling.
All right, he is Noah St. John. He is the author of the book of Affirmations, Discovering the Missing Piece to Abundant Health, Wealth, Love, and Happiness. The website is affirmationsbook.com. You can get over $500 worth of free training when you get the book. Noah's giving away the farm, so make sure you get to affirmationsbook.com to pick up your free training. Noah, any last words for the folks who are signing off with us today?
Absolutely, and that is that affirmations really can not only change your life, but they can really change the world. So if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, kids love affirmations. Teach affirmations to your kids. Teach them to your family members, teach them to your team members, you know, your employees, your colleagues. Just, I mean, affirmations right now to change your life can also change the world. So I hope everybody starts asking better questions, and that's how we're going to change the world, working together. Great stuff. Noah, thank you very much. The website is affirmationsbook.com. Get over there right now and get your free training, and of course get a couple of copies of the books. Noah, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being on the show. My pleasure, Fran. Talk to you later.